Hey everybody, welcome to another video. We're going to talk about another store, specifically a toy store. We're going to talk about Kay-Bee Toys and Circus World respectively. Here's a couple of problems I'm having, though, trying to do videos on this stuff is I'm specifically talking about these stores in a specific time period, and I go online, look. I don't know about anybody else, but is YouTube, or not YouTube, sorry, is Google just useless anymore? Because you can't find anything that you're looking for. And I can't, with the weirdest, just the most, obscure crap that's on the internet, you would just assume that finding something that seems to be not so obscure would be pretty easy to find. And it doesn't matter what you're looking for. You'll find a million things of what you don't need. But as soon as you go looking for something, suddenly it's like it never existed. It's like the Mandela effect. Like, what do you mean? Well, the internet's like, what do you mean? What, this never existed. And so I didn't get a lot of good pictures. So if you guys have pictures of any of the stuff I've been talking about, let me know, or you got links or whatever, a better way to look this stuff, because I swear to God, I can't find shit anymore on the internet. And it's funny because you would think, now obviously I'm talking about a time period way before the internet, way before digital cameras. But that said, people loved their Polaroids, and people loved their cameras, and some cameras have been around forever, obviously, not forever, but for a long time. And you would think, with the amount of times, think about, you work at these places. Let's say you work at Kay-Bee Toys Store, you work at Kmart, or whatever. You're going to this job not every single day, but a lot. And there's lots of people that have gone. You trying to tell me that nobody has taken pictures? Like, let's say it's somebody's birthday, a colleague's birthday or something, or let's just say there's an event going on in the store, or you just happen to have a camera and you like taking pictures and went, hey, you know what, this is kind of neat, I want to take a picture of these things. I don't know if there was policies against that back then. I don't think any of the jobs that I worked, they would have even cared, but you think somebody would have taken, their 35 millimeter, or their Polaroid, or whatever, the Kodak disc, or Cube camera, if you remember the Cube cameras, and just said, hey, look, Mary's having her reception this weekend. Let's take pictures of Mary. She's working at the Kresge Grill, or somebody's stocking Star Wars figures in 1978 at Kay-Bee Toy Store. Hey, Jim. Yeah, Bob. How's it going there, working there, doing, you think somebody, with all of the stores and all of the people, you think there would be more photographs. And also, you would think people who have owned those photographs, or have those photographs in their collection, would go, hey, you know what, this store I used to work at doesn't exist anymore. I would imagine there's probably a lot of people on the internet would like to see these pictures, because I took some pretty good pictures of the inside of the store. I mean, there are pictures, but they all seem like they're of the outside, very few pictures of the inside. And the ones that I do find, they seem to be very like 90s photos. And again, I don't mind the 90s photos, but you got to remember, some of these stores in particular, and I would say, if you just went into these stores, the feel, just the overall atmosphere inside, say, a Kay-Bee Toy Store in a mall in, say, 1979, 1980, 1981, right around that time period, right, was so much different than Kay-Bee Toy Stores in, like, the late 80s, and especially in the 90s. Everything in the 90s, when PlayStations are out and everything was video game heavy, and they used to keep all their video games behind the counters and stuff. I mean, they've always have, for the most part, back even with the Atari and ColecoVision. But, it was a different atmosphere. And specifically, Kay-Bee Toy Store was also called, it wasn't just called Kay-Bee Toys, America's, best toy store, or whatever it was called. It was also called, if you looked it up, like, I didn't notice this until I looked it up in the phone book back in '84 and I was trying to track down Transformers, that it says specifically Kay-Bee Toys and Hobbies. And I went, oh, I was wondering why they have so many hobby related items at Kay-Bee Toys Store, more so than Toys R Us. And we had a local store, and I don't know if it's regional or I don't know if it's nationwide. I don't think it is. We had a store in our Winchester Mall right next to the Kmart called JK Toys, and I used to always get that mixed up because I used to always just think there's always a K, and so JK Toys and Kay-Bee Toys to me, and then there was a K&K Toys in Lakeside Mall. I used to get the K's all mixed up, but I remember specifically I'd always call it JK. I want to go up to JK. Yeah, Dad, can we go to JK? All right, and then so can we go to Meadowbrook, because that's where Kay-Bee was. Can we go to I want to go to Kay-Bee at Meadowbrook and Camelot. I want to go to Camelot and Kay-Bee. So you'd always refer to those stores as that. I didn't go, Father, I would like to go to the toy establishment. I mean, I never said, I was like, yeah, let's go to Kay-Bee. Let's go to JK. So anyways, jump in the AMC Eagle and head up to JK. I cannot find anything on JK, so it's kind of pointless to make that discussion. But I'm going to kind of lump them into here because JK Toys, like Kay-Bee, it wasn't just a toy store, it was also a hobby shop. People might, and I think in the 90s, as Kay-Bee was still going, and JK I think had been gone by that time, I think people kind of failed to realize in the 90s that it wasn't just a toy store, it was a Kay-Bee toy, or it was a hobby shop. And so was Circus World. Now I was looking at, I'm not going to do a history of Kay-Bee and Circus World. I'm not going to talk about how they went out of business or whatever, yada yada yada. There's plenty of videos online talking about that. But I'm almost positive, and correct me if I'm wrong, that Kay-Bee and Circus World were owned by the same people. Meaning it was the same store. So like if you go to Checkers and you go to Rally's, right? Go get a Checkers burger, go get a Rally's burger. It's owned by they're the same store. Just for some reason, certain cities they call it Checkers, certain cities they call it Rally's. Mr. Pibb, Dr. Pepper, So I'm assuming that Circus World, because Circus World bared an awful strong resemblance, the layout, everything, to Kay-Bee, almost so that it's almost interchangeable. And I mean, if you were just to not pay attention to the sign, you'd think you're in the same store. And with our two major malls, Lakeside and Sterling Heights, and Oakland Mall in Troy, or Madison Heights technically, a lot of heights in in the Detroit area. I don't like heights. Anyways, Oakland Mall did have a Kay-Bee toy store, but they also had a Circus World on two ends of the mall because they built a new section to Oakland Mall where the Pennies was. That's where the Kay-Bee was, but before then they just had Circus World. Lakeside Mall always had a Kay-Bee, and then they had that K&K for a while. And that also was it didn't look exactly like it, so K&K seemed to be a unique place. But then if you go back, I don't want to say K a lot. If you go to JK Toy Store in Winchester Mall, that one had its distinct look, and it was out of the various toy stores, the non-Toys R Us, non-Children's Palace related stores that I'm talking about. Children's Palace, also called Child's World, same thing. Is that JK Toys was a large store for being inside a mall, meaning that if you went into our JK Toys, you had the main section of the store, which is even bigger than a JK. Well, it had a higher ceiling because it had it wasn't like a full second level, but you had a step, and you went up to another, like a raised area that's maybe a half floor off the ground, and on that half ground were a lot of bikes. They had a whole bunch of bikes there, and then they had the whole section around it were all model kits. All the Dungeons and Dragons stuff was all up there. A lot of the hobby-related things were all up there, and that was also called JK Toys and Hobbies. And then the action figures and toy stuff were more on the main floor. It was bigger. So if you went into Kay-Bee toy stores, the same thing with Kay-Bee though. So I'm going to use my Meadowbrook store as my example. It's the one I most frequently went to. But when you walked in, you had the register to the right. You always had stuff on sale or on clearance, kind of like in the front, because they wanted you to see that right away. And then they had aisles. And then if you went to the far right aisle, that was all the hobby stuff. They had model kits, telescopes, microscopes. All the Dungeons and Dragons stuff was down there. Radio controlled cars. All that stuff was down that one section. SD's model rockets. That's where I learned about SD's model rockets, was going into that Kay-Bee toy store. And I got a story about that. But anyways, and then you had the next aisle over, had action figures. Sorry, it's happening again. You had action figures down the one aisle with the play sets and vehicles. I think the next aisle was all the girl stuff like Barbie and all the dolls and whatnot. And then the very far side, I think the aisles they had, the very far side was all Lego, Playmobil, games. Actually, no, I take it back. The games were mixed in with the hobby section. Well, you know what? Take it back. Sorry. I know that the games were on that side because they had you get Clue and you get Life and Monopoly and all that stuff. Over by Dungeons and Dragons, that's where they'd have games like Axis and Allies, Shogun, all that stuff would always be over with the hobby section because they kind of separated their games section. And I remember at one time they moved all the stuff from the one side to the back corner. I know there was a door to the employees area there, and I think the stockroom door was in the back. And I just remember that because I had to go in that employee room for once and sit down. I was talking, the employee wanted me to come in there and sit down for a second. I can't remember what that was about. I couldn't find my mom or somebody like that. That was when I was really small. I was at the mall and I couldn't find them. They were in a store somewhere, and I couldn't find them. And then I went in there, and then they had the security guard come down and pick me up, and then take me to his office, and then he had the PA, and then he paged my mom to come pick me up down there. That happened to me a lot, by the way, because I was young. I remember being Lakeside Mall, big mall, packed mall, and I was 5, 6. Today they would consider that child abuse, or child neglect or whatever. But back then I was like, I would go with my mom, and she'd just want to shop for clothes and stuff like that. And I would, I don't know if you remember going into the, pulling the women's clothes and hiding inside the clothes racks all the time. That was like the coolest thing to do back then, was hiding in the clothes racks. And then, of course, the employee would be like, hey, can you have your kid not play in the toys racks? And then my mom would get mad at me. And then my mom would say, just go wherever you're going to go. I'm going to be here for a while. And so you'd go, and then once you got away from your mom, you're like, okay, there's so many people, you're lost. And once I went to your store, and then I go try to find them, I can't find anybody. You would think somebody'd say, hey, at a certain time, but I had no watch, so I didn't know what time. I guess I could have asked somebody what time it was. But you think my parents would... But usually when I got shooshed away, it's because I was aggravating them to the point where they just didn't even think, like, hey, meet me in an hour down at the water fountain, right? My sister used to do that when I go with my sister, and I never used to get lost. But my mom, she didn't seem like she had such a good game plan. She would just get lost, and then I would get lost, and literally I would get lost, and then I'd have to go to the information counter and, Mrs. Phillips, can you please come to the information counter? Your son is here. And then I'm in trouble again. So anyways, yeah. And anyways, but going to these smaller malls, it was harder to get lost, although I remember getting lost at one time. I don't know where my mom went. I never got lost with my dad. Because my dad never left me alone. My dad would just follow me around and say, no, no, all right, maybe, all right, yeah, let's go buy that. My dad would be like, hey, I don't want to sit here in the store. I'm going to be right outside. This is when you could smoke. And I remember, well, he wasn't smoking at the time, but I remember when he started smoking again, he would do that. And he would go outside and have a cigarette, and then, but he would say, hey, I'm out in front of the store, when you're done, come on out, right? And so, you know, I do that. But back to Kay-Bee Toy Store and JK and all of these. Like I said, Kay-Bee is kind of my central focus because that's probably the most well-known. Not too many people know about Circus World, and obviously probably nobody knows about Kay-Bee. But again, these stores were mostly in malls. I can't think of a Kay-Bee outside of when they went into like being a clearance store and liquidation store towards the end, when they they took them out of malls and they put them in like strip malls. Up until that point, I believe that there was all of the Kay-Bees were specifically exclusive to malls. I believe. I might be wrong on that, and it might be different in some other cities and states. Same thing with Circus World. I said I think there was only the one JK toy store, but because when I went to other malls like the Fairlane Mall, all these mall malls that were kind of like obscure to me then, you know, in the Detroit area, there are a lot of malls, and it was always, I never came across another JK. It was always Kay-Bee, Circus World. I don't even think I ever came across like another K and K. I think that was its own store as well. But let me pull up some of the photos. This is all I've got. I don't have a lot. But let me pull up what I do have here. So I got Circus Worlds pulled up here. So let's just look at Kay-Bee. The oldest Kay-Bee picture that I could find, I believe, is this one. It's not the best picture, and I don't know when that was taken. It says Atari 2600, so I'm assuming we're in the ballpark of where I'm at, and I can't see exactly. This photograph's so grainy, I can't see what's there. I don't remember having. I mean, I know they did have bikes, but they obviously had limited store space. But I guess they had bikes up top there. I see the Ataris. Like again, remember this is where we've got the Texas Instruments stuff. This is where, you know, a lot of things were purchased at Kay-Bee Toy Store. I think my dad ended up buying Castle Grayskull at Kay-Bee Toy Store when I got it for Christmas of 1982. Dark Tower, I also got Christmas of 1982. I know my dad bought that at Dark Tower, or I got that at Kay-Bee Toy Store because my sister was trying to get me to not be in the store where I went and bought it. A lot of gifts came from this store, or JK, but there, like I said, this one looks vaguely like the one in the Winchester, the Lakeside Mall. Now here's the thing. I cannot find a picture of it. All these pictures, like that's more of a, this is like Kay-Bee, I would say this is Kay-Bee, like 1985 to the end. I would say this is pretty much Kay-Bee. And this looks like it's going out of business. This might be towards the end too. Because they had this blue with the red letters. Like I said, you walk in the store, there would be the register, video games would be behind there. You had to ask for them. They'd always have stuff on sale, these giant displays here. And then, you know, then they'd have aisles in the back. But this is probably what most people remember as Kay-Bee Toy Store looking like this. I would imagine. That's more of what I remember. But our Kay-Bee Toy Store, there's another one. See, there we go. Kay-Bee Toy and Hobby. And this looks like the 80s. That dude looks pretty 80s. I can't. Again, these photographs are so bad. I can't see what the product is. Yeah, some of them were around corners. Some of them weren't. I don't remember any of the ones we had being around. Sorry, my nose is all itchy. Being around corners. But our Kay-Bee store, there's Circus World. And that looks like the 80s there, because, I mean, those toys look very, I mean, she looks very 80s. Those giant snakes. Yeah, I'm going to say that was probably early 80s there, it looks like. I can't tell exactly what everything is. I see a lot of the kids' stuff. But Yogi Bear, those look pretty old. Some of those toys, like Garfield. Yeah, I'd say this is probably early 80s here. It's probably like 81, 82. But what was I trying to say? our Kay-Bee Toys store, the one at Meadowbrook Mall, I don't know if I remember. Meadowbrook Mall is a weird mall. It's very dark. Like, this looks very dark, this mall, but that was back when, remember when malls were dark? Like, kind of shady when you went inside? Like, it wasn't a lot of lighting. And our Meadowbrook Mall had a brick floor. It was supposed to look like the old street, like old-time streets, like Victorian-era mall, and had an all-brick floor. The entire mall had an all-brick floor. It was like the bricks were a little uneven, but they were like polished and covered with like some kind of lacquer to kind of make them shiny. But it had an all-brick floor, and then it had wood section parts of the floor. They had this big. I'd love to do it. I'd love to get more photographs of Meadowbrook Mall. It's gone too. Anything good's gone. But anyways, they had like a ship, like a wooden ship kind of thing, like more cartoony, not like looked like a real ship. And it was a puppet house thing where like you walked up little stairs and you go into it, and all the little bleachers were like the back of the ship, and then they had a stage, and it was a puppet show area. And they had speakers and stuff, and all the kids would sit there and they would put on these puppet shows like on the hour, you know. Really cool puppet shows too. Really neat puppets. I remember sitting there watching a lot of the puppet shows. And then down the one way was Oceana, the Chinese food restaurant with the big gate. But if you went back, on the right was mid-mall was Kay-Bee Toys Store, and they had like when the door, you know, like most people had like the gates that come down to like should close the store up. This had these big wooden, almost like French doors that would shut, and they were like rounded, almost like a barn door. They're white with like black, you know, trim on it, and they would bring these doors and they would shut them and lock the door, because a lot of times on like a Sunday they don't open till noon, but the mall's open, so we go up there like, you know, 11:45, and we walk around and wait for the stores to open. I remember they would open these big barn doors, and the barn doors would kind of like, I remember they come back and then they'd fold back on each other, and so you'd have like, and it would be two rounded sections with these kind of rounded fold back doors. And like I said, I've never seen anything like that at any other store. And Camelot Records next door had more of a modern feel, but they had that Camelot symbol there. But they had like a normal section, but it was weird. It's just a weird mall. And then they had that creepy thing, I think I showed pictures of it, that cider mill thing in the back with the big wheel, the water wheel inside the store, little river inside the mall. Oh, such a creepy thing. Scared the bejeebas out of me as a kid. Anyways, that was our Kay-Bee Toy Store there. And like I said, if you been watching a lot of my videos, I've probably mentioned this store quite a bit. It's in the ColecoVision. There's a story about it in the ColecoVision video. There's stories about it in almost all the toy videos. But back to my story about what do you call it? Estes model rockets. So I had seen them kind of in the back there section. I think I saw them at the Trackside Hobbies downtown Rochester. But I wanted to get one. I wanted to get into that because of these rockets, and it's like, and they're smoke bombs. You light the smoke bombs at the bottom, and they take off. That's how he used to describe the stuff, right? And so we went in there, and we came out. My dad goes, "Hey, Santa Claus is back at the wheel of pain." the water wheel, like. They're the little pond river. It was fake, you know, people sort of changed. It was basically just a glorified fountain, but it looked kind of like a little pond with a river. And like, it had these like wooden raised areas that you walk over it, and you walk over the river, and then when you get to then the water wheel was there, and it would circulate the water, you know, and all the gears and stuff of that place. But they always have Santa Claus there. And my dad goes, "Yeah, Santa Claus is back at the wheel." And I said, "Can we go see him?" He's like, "Yeah, why not?" So we go back to see Santa Claus, and I remember sitting on Santa Claus's, this would have been like 1982, sitting on Santa Claus's lap. And he's like, what do you want for Christmas, little boy? I go, I want these rockets. That you put smoke bombs in the bottom of them, and then you light them with a cigarette lighter, and they take off, right? And he's like, what? You let me talk to your dad. And he's motioning to my dad. My dad walks up there. He's like, what's he talking about now? He goes, want some kind of smoke bomb firework rocket thing? And he goes, no, he goes, I know what he's talking about. He wants those model rockets that are at the toy store. And he's like, oh, they're models. And I go, yeah, but you light them with a cigarette. You don't light them with a cigarette lighter. But that's my logic. Because like I said, I should do a video all in itself on SD model rockets. Talk about a hobby that was both got your heart pumping and you're racing and you pushed all your kid buttons, and at the same time was the biggest letdown ever. I had a lot of those type of toys where it's just like in your mind it's the holy grail, it's nirvana, but when you actually meet, like, especially a smart kid with a dad who's like an engineer or something and they do smart kid stuff, you go hang out with them and they actually show you how it really works, you're like, oh, that's not that fun. But because I remember, yeah, there was that did happen. I remember that my teacher said, hey, we want to make we're gonna make paper mache stuff, and I was like, I'm gonna make a paper mache Columbia. This is before the Challenger exploded. A Columbia space shuttle, and I made it out of my dad's Miller High Life cans. So here I'm coming to school with these empty beer cans that I didn't even rinse out in a shoebox with a Leg's egg front and some cardboard slices and some masking tape and all that stuff. And I said, hey, I'm gonna make this spaceship. And she's like, oh, I used to win a lot of art awards because I do some pretty crazy shit. So the teachers are kind of like, oh, what's Tim going to come up with this time? But at the same time, here I am with this box of beer cans and stuff in it. And, and I said, oh, I'm going to make this thing. And she says, oh, I said, and I'm going to put the smoke bombs in it, the ones you put in the rocket toys, and I'm going to light it off and launch it. And they're like, okay. And then I remember I didn't have a drill, so I took like I don't know what I took, something sharp, and just started banging the back of the can to make 3 holes. I wanted 3 holes specifically to put the little rocket engines, and I didn't measure them at all or anything. I just assumed this kind of looks like the size of one of those engines. And then I had my dad buy the engines, right? And then he's like, how do you light these things? And I go, with a cigarette lighter. My dad didn't smoke at the time. He kind of quit for a while. And he goes, oh, we'll have to light it with we can get a cigarette lighter, and I'm going to use some matches. Anyways, I ended up, the teacher ended up calling Scott Miller's dad. Now, Scott Miller was the smart kid. He was one of those kids looked like he was 80 when he was, 8. And and his dad was an engineer, and they were a smart family, right? I think the mom did some kind of science too, right? So they were the smart people. Anyways, the teacher ended up calling Mr. Miller and said, hey, you might want to go over to Tim's house or give him a call, talk to his dad. They're building some kind of rockets that have like smoke bombs in them that launch in the air. And he goes, I might have mentioned this story before, but anyways, he goes, oh, hey, yeah, I remember him called my grandma's house, which is weird. I don't know how he got a hold of my grandma's number, but called my grandma's house while I was there. Maybe he called my dad. My dad said he's at his grandma's, and then gave him the number. Maybe, I don't know. He called my grandma's house, and he says, Tim, so what are you doing? I said, well, I made this space shuttle out of some beer cans and some Leg's eggs, but I want to launch it like a rocket. So I put the rocket engines in the back. I put the smoke bombs is what I called them, right? He goes, you mean the engines? What? What do you mean engines? He's like, yeah, the engines. You bought some engines for rocket engines. And I go, no. I'm thinking engine like a motor in a car. No, not an engine. I bought a smoke bombs. He goes, they're not smoke bombs. They're rocket engines. because he had to use the technical term because he was an engineer, right? And it's just like, I didn't like that. No, they're smoke bombs. And he said, because I'm an idiot, right? And this is a smart person I'm talking to. And he's like, no, they're smoke bombs. And so, or sorry, they're engines. He goes, you can't just light them with, they won't light by just putting a match or a cigarette lighter behind you. You need the launcher. And I go, the what? He goes, do you ever see in the store they have those little, like, gantries? What's a gantry? And that you put the rockets on, and you usually use a 9-volt battery or a bigger battery that you attach to 2 alligator clips, and you put the lead into, I don't even know what the guy's talking. He's talking science to me, right? And then I said, he goes, let me come over and see what you got. So I didn't have the stuff with me. I ended up going to see my dad, and my dad's just like, well, yeah, I don't think this thing's gonna work. And he's like, no, it's not gonna work. He's like, it's so heavy. He says it's probably not even going to come off the ground. It's not aerodynamic. The reason the rockets are made a certain way is how they launch. And he goes, how about you just get them a rocket, and we'll try a rocket out. And I said, okay. But he didn't tell my dad about it doesn't work with the cigarette lighter, because I remember, or the matches, because I remember being in the backyard with my dad trying, and I just basically put the rocket engine in it. From him, the rocket looked like shit because I had to make it. And it was just like, put this tube here? What do I do with these fins? Oh, you gotta you gotta cut them out with an X-Acto knife? I didn't even know what an X-Acto knife was back then. And then you gotta cement them on. I hated those technical terms. Cement. It's glue. You had to glue them on to the back of it, and then you had to attach the stuff. I got the little engine. My dad's sitting there with the match, holding the match underneath. He goes, it ain't doing anything. I go, yeah, it's just going to go. He's like, well, I hope it doesn't go with my hand right there. Because my dad had no clue what any of this stuff was. Apparently this stuff was not around in the 50s when my dad was a kid. Which I think it was, though. He's holding this, nothing happens, right? And then I remember Mr. Miller we ended up going over to his house, and they took us down to the field, because they had to go to the ball field. Oh, you need plenty of room to do this. Got to go down to the ball field. Callback ball field there in Woodward, and we went down there, and we had all the proper stuff and everything. And then when they did it, and he goes, okay, now turn the key that primes the system. What's he talking about? Now hit the what do you call it? I can't remember what he called it. The launch mechanism. And then he's like, hit the thing, and just takes off like that, and like, where'd it go? Well, it's coming down. You can see the parachute, which I can't believe actually got the parachute to work. And then the thing came down, and it was like, oh, what do you do now? Well, you can rearm it with another engine and do it again. I'm like, it's not that much fun. So all of that for nothing, pretty much. A lot of that stuff, too, that Tavi stuff, was just a way, like racetracks, car just goes into orbit and ends up somewhere, like in the backyard, right? It's like, no, you gotta throttle it. What do you mean throttle it? Yeah, you can't go full bore the whole way, right? You gotta take your finger on and off it and build up speed. And I'm like, what are you talking about? There goes the car again. So all the different stuff that takes, like, smart, or at least relatively, what do you call it? Average intelligence people to do as a kid, right? Especially kids and their dads. Me and my dad we'd fuck up everything. So anyway, my dad was usually 3 sheets to the wind when we did this stuff anyways. Sorry, I've gotten way off base on the on the Kay-Bee tour. I just wanted to tell that story, just to get it down on the video. So back to Kay-Bee and Circus World and all this stuff. I like the stores. I mean, I liked them a lot. I mean, they're ingrained in my skull with all the chasing around looking for toys. Watch my Transformers video. I mentioned going to that same Meadowbrook Kay-Bee Toys store when I was looking for Transformers. It was like I said, this is what I had in the city of Rochester without going to another city to go to a mall. We had Kittyland, which was a mom and pop place. Kittyland, which was like the central toy store for me. And then we had Kay-Bee, up in Meadowbrook Mall. We had J.K. Toys in Winchester Mall, which J.K. Toys kind of got popular like around like 80, 81. I don't think it was around in the 70s. I don't believe it was. Maybe it was. I just didn't notice it. But those are the three main. There's three dedicated toy stores and hobby shops within. I mean, they're in walking distance if you want to go for a walk. But I mean, they're in even riding bikes. They're a little far. But especially remember the hill, the Avon Hill. I don't know what the Avon Hill. But anyways, within a couple of miles from each other, you had three different toy stores. Plus, you had Kmart. And this is before Meijer wasn't in Rochester yet. Target wasn't there yet. That whole area was just a giant field. So none of that was there. And then you had Kresge for a while until they ended up, leaving. But you had Kresge in the North Hill Shopping Center. So, like I said, in this small area, you had all these different stores and these places to go. There was no need to go to Lakeside Mall. There's no need to go. I mean, going to Lakeside Mall or going to Oakland Mall as a kid was a treat. I mean, it was an event. It was like a thing. Just like going to Kmart. It was an experience. And it was usually you were there for a while. I mean, it was like, hey, let's go get the kids, go get cleaned up, and, and we're going to all go up to the mall, right? Because we're going to be around other humans, jam-packed like cattle in some on a Saturday. So you didn't want to smell like, like death. So you get all dolled up and everything. My dad get the Aqua Velva on or the Brute, and everybody get all gussied up because you might be looking like, we're going to look at furniture too. Ooh. And you want to be, it's like, why are we dressed up like we're going to church to go shopping? But that's kind of how it was like in the 70s with my parents. And then, of course, then the neighbors are going to come, so then we all got to get all gussied up, and then, and then go to, usually went out to eat somewhere like the Oceana Inn in Meadowbrook Mall. The toy stores seem to be a thing of the past because kids don't play with toys anymore. Unless, if you do find a toy store, it's always in like some well-to-do town like Birmingham where there's like old money. If you go up north, when I say up north, I mean northern Michigan, going up north, and you go to like some of these like, vacation hotspot towns, which are just packed and in just asinine amounts of money. I don't know. Just last few times we've gone to some of these resort towns in Michigan, where it's again, this is like back in the day going to Kmart. Everybody went there, and most people were middle class. Now you go to these places, and it's just like, people are so freaking rich in these areas. You're just like, you just look at some of these houses, and you just look at their clothes and their money and their cars and stuff. It's like, what the hell? Where are people getting all their goddamn money from? But if you go into those small, like, resort towns and stuff, there's always going to be, like, this mom-and-pop toy store that sells, like, uber-expensive rich kid toys. It's like, oh, they've got, like, full, clown marionette puppet clown thing for, like, $1,000. And you're just like... even if I was rich, it was like, my son said, hey, can I get $1,000 clown marionette? No? Who buys this stuff? Stuffed animal. They had like this one place, Jesus, the stuffed animal section was like, I'm looking at some of the stuffed animal prices. These are like, what are these? They got like diamonds or something like hidden. They got cocaine hidden in these things or something. Because it's like the stuffed animals were like, like $500, $900, $1,200, $1,800 for stuffed animals. I'm like, I am in the wrong town. I'm in the wrong place store. I don't know why, it's crazy shit. And I was like, oh my God. Like, why is everything so extreme nowadays? Things, like I said, back in the day, when things were generally normal, everybody went to Ponderosa to eat. That was eating high on the hog, was going to Ponderosa. Right now, you go to, if there even is a Ponderosa, it's like, you might not make it out of there alive. You might have salmonella or food poisoning. Sorry. But you go to some of these places, yeah, it's just, like I said, just normal people. Like, here, I'll pull up the pictures of the mall. And I know, like I said, I mean, I went to Sam's Club the other day, and we were walking around, there's a lot of people. People look normal, right? I mean, this woman's probably attractive, so she's probably got a husband with some loot, right? There's probably a Suburban, and there are probably a couple of Disney trips going on with this woman here, right? That's my barometer for young, attractive wife with kids. And it's like every time you go to like pick up your kid from like elementary school, there's this one woman she's pretty attractive. She always looked like she just got out of her Pilates class, right? And she just looked like she squats every single day. Or, does like 1,000,000 squats a day. Anyways, she was there, and it's like she's talking to like the other like Bay Cityites, which are clearly not as wealthy as she is, and she's like, "Oh yeah, well, my husband, blah 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 blah, my husband this, my husband that," and then they were like, I think it was like right around coming after the winter break or whatever, and she's like, "Oh, what'd you guys do for winter break?" "No, it's a Disney World." "Of course you did. Of course you spent 12 grand and 15 grand on a Disney trip. Of course you did. Why wouldn't you?" I don't know. Sorry. I went on a tangent there. Anyways, that's what this woman reminds me of right here. "Hey, Billy, is there a $1,000 marionette in there?" "No, I guess we better go to Sagatuck." Sorry. Anyways, oh, it's the first day of spring. Hey, look at that. I just talking about spring. But like I said, I mean, you got whatever you call it. You got this guy. He looks like a piece of work. Again, this is back when there was a middle class, I mean, sure, people might have money. This guy might be driving a Volvo or a BMW out in the parking lot, right? I don't know, he just looks like a guy that works for a tech company. But anyway, drives a Volvo or a BMW. Anyways, more Volvo than a BMW. BMW is really not a tech guy thing. That's more like I want to look like I'm rich. This is more like a smart guy. Tall, smart, balding guy that's probably an engineer. He's probably an engineer. Drives a Volvo. Anyways, I don't know. This is what I do when I look. That's why I like to people watch. I go out and I was like, "What's that person's story?" And I make up their story in my head based on what I take by looking at them. But anyways, but like I said, this is the middle class, But nowadays it's just, I don't know, it's crazy. And all this stuff's gone, too. The malls are gone. The toy stores are gone. If you want to buy video games, I mean, you can go to Best Buy, you can go to Target, and go to Walmart. But why? Because you can just download them on your system at home and not even get the physical media. Like I said, I was just talking with my friend this afternoon while I was working. And I said to him, I go, the freaking internet. And we've come to the conclusion that the internet has both its advantages and disadvantages. It's done a lot of good things, and it's done a lot of just shitty things, right? I find that seems like here's the median, right? Good things, shitty things. I thought it was kind of always just considered, it's got its advantages, but also has its disadvantages. I feel nowadays, as things are just starting to be how they are, I feel like the barometer is starting to move to the shitty side a lot more. It's like every time it's just like, creativity's dead. There's 1,000,000 people doing the same thing that homogenizes everything. Skibbity Toilet. Mr. Beast. Mr. Beast isn't so bad, but you know what I'm talking about. You know what I mean? Everything just starts to seem to be squared from this side. No longer is it like, hey, I found a way to work at home and to follow my passion and do my dreams. And I've got opportunities now that I never had before. Yeah, so does everybody. Oh, hey, I have a lot of talent, and everybody considers me to have a lot of talent in one thing. It seems like, great, now I have an opportunity now but now everybody's got talent, right? It's just like, now there's 1,000,000 people doing exactly what I was trying to do. Oh, now everybody, and people are surpassing. It's, like I said, if you look at that median, every time I keep thinking it's like in the middle, the internet everything starts to go towards hell. So, going towards the apocalypse, internet apocalypse, zombie apocalypse. It's all coming. But like I said, I see these pictures though, and like the Kmart video and stuff. It's just like this whole world is gone, doesn't exist anymore. Like I said, I should pull it up sometime. If you go on slide, look up Target. In Target store interior, right? That's what, Sam's Club, Costco on a Saturday, Walmart, Walmart near an inner city. Look up that. That's what everything, it's so, I mean, it's along the same lines of things that used to exist, but all of the things that you would just have in your mind when you think about going shopping or leaving the house, to go somewhere. It's like all of these different things, like thinking about going to get something to eat, going out to eat and not spending $100 on dinner. Going out to eat and then, hey, we're going to go see a movie afterwards. We're going to stop by the mall and look around for the stores until the movie starts. Oh, and you would, like I said, the smells would come in, the sounds, all the different stuff for your senses would come into play. It's just like, all that seems to just be gone. Like I said, it's $100, $65, $100 to go to eat. If you want to go to fast food, you're spending $25, $30 for you and another person to go eat fast food. A movie's what, $15, $20 to see a movie now? And nobody needs to go see a movie. You can just watch it on your 9,000-inch television set in your living room. And the malls are gone, so there's no mall to go to. What are we going to do? We're going to go to Target, Costco, walk around for a little bit. Oh. This doesn't have the whatever anymore. I know I'm old now. Things aren't as... But I ask my son all the time, and I've been asking him. I said, what do you think about this place? Do you like this? He's like, eh. A lot of times, like, when are we going to leave? How long do we have to be at Costco? No, we don't got to go out to eat. I don't want to go sit down and out to eat. And like I said, that was like when your parents said, hey, we're going to go out, we're going to go to Ponderosa and go to the Sweden house, going to go somewhere, going to go down to Cooper's Arms, it was a thing. I mean, it's like, oh, we're going to go out to eat. Nowadays it's just like, I think my son doesn't mind it now, but for the longest time, like, at the age when I used to love it, he was like, I don't want to do that. He wants to come home and play video games and watch Skibbity Toilet or give him his tablet while he's there. I hope he doesn't forget it at the restaurant. I remember we forgot it at Red Lobster. That was a pain in the ass. Anyways, but again, I know I've gotten way off course with the Kay-Bee Toy Store. I guess there's not a lot to tell about, because there's not a lot to show. If I had more to show you guys, I could show you more. Look up, like I said, if you guys look up on stuff online. I just wanted to point this out. This is, I don't know what store this is. This is probably a Toys R Us or whatever. But this picture, there's one of the Star Wars figures too. But this, and I might even shown that before. But back in the 80s, when you went into, this reminds me a lot of, because of the higher ceiling, this reminds me a lot of JK Toys. And when you walked in JK Toys, the left side of the store looked like this. And it was, look how many frickin', you'd never see this nowadays, right? You wouldn't go, it's like, well, I want to get some, what do I want? G.I. Joe vehicle. Well, you got your choice. There's a shit ton of G.I. Joe stuff there. How many Mambas do they have? Look at that. They got I can't remember what the thing's called. Look how many they have of that, right? You're looking at some of these mid-range vehicles. Look how many they have of these. It's like there's no. I had this. There's no. Look at all the mask stuff, right? And look at this. Toys went to the rafters. It was a high ceiling, and they had to stock all those boxes up to the rafters. It's just there's so much product there. And people were buying it. it's just, I don't know, I just miss that whole time period when you would go to the store. It's just like, I'm looking for, there's a good chance you're going to be coming home with something, whether it's G.I. Joe mask, I see cops there. There's a good chance you're going to be coming home with it. And if that's cops, then, and I can tell by the G.I. Joe stuff, this is the late 80s. This is like 89, 90 right here. Yeah, you're coming home with something. You know, if you've got 20 bucks in your pocket, you're probably going to come home with a few guys. You might come home with a vehicle. You know, I think the Mamba might have been a little over 20 at that point. You're probably not going to come up with a big playset coming home, but you're coming home with something here. Hey, you're going to get this. You're going to get this. You're going to get this. Or maybe you're just going to get a few guys. With masks for 20 bucks, I mean, hell, you could get most of the vehicles. I think the most expensive mask stuff was like the big van, like monster truck van. I think that was like 25, and I think the Boulder Hill playset was like 25. But for $20 in your pocket, you're probably going to get most of the stuff there, you know, and that's about, like I said, my dad, I was spoiled there for a time period, for a small pocket of time, where my dad was spending like 20 bucks a week and just giving me 20 bucks a week to buy this stuff. And that's why I accumulated so much of it. But like I said, I mean, once my dad kind of like, you know, stopped giving me all that money, I had to find a way to maintain that lifestyle. And for me, it was mowing lawns and shoveling snow. And like I said, I had 20s curled up in my socks, sweating, you know, my sweaty socks. And it got on my, you know, I didn't have a car. I was a kid. It's get on your bike. And, you know, if you bought something big like this, it was going to be a pain in the ass to get it back home. You never thought about that until you got there. And you're like, oh, wow, I want that Mamba. Oh, I got the money, too. You got a bag? Yeah, we got a really big bag. And here you have this giant bag, and you'd curl it around your handlebars, and it'd just be banging around. You didn't want to mess up the box. It was just a pain in the ass coming home. A lot of instances like that where you would, and I loved that. I loved getting on my bike with money in my pocket that I made from, you know, whatever, and going to the store and buying toys, like just spending hours there. You know, I would literally spend like 2 hours at the toy store like this and go through everything to really go like, what do they have? What do I want? You know, I think it was more fun when I didn't know what I wanted, because I'd spend more time and have more fun looking. Like if I was like, I'm going to buy the Mamba, that's what I'm going there for. It seemed like it was one and done. It's like I go there and look around. All right, I've got other stuff, but I've got my mindset on that Mamba, and I would buy it, and then I would go home. You know, I'd get back on my bike or whatever, go home, because I knew it was going to be a pain in the ass to take home. I didn't like those trips as much. I liked, you know, where I'd call ahead and say, hey, can you set it aside? And then they'd set it aside, and then you'd go in and you'd pay for it and you'd leave. I liked going in when I was just like, you know what, I don't know what I'm going to buy. But I've got money, I've got time, and they've got stuff I want. I'm just going to go up there, and it's just like being on the internet. I'm going to go up there and I'm just going to browse until I find something. Hey, I think I am going to get the Mamba. How am I going to get that thing home? Oh, like if I got, maybe I can get 2 of these vehicles and it'll be easier to bring home. Yeah, let's do that. And then I'll come back up with my mom or my dad or my sister and with the car, and then we'll get the Mamba. Oh, I don't want to go with my sister. She'd be like, you shouldn't be buying toys when you're 12 years old. You're too old for those. And then, you know, and my mom was like that too. The only one who really didn't care was my dad. My dad was just like, whatever, it's your money. We'll do whatever you want to do with it. He never gave me shit about it. I liked that. But my mom and my sister was just constantly with, you're too old for this stuff. Am I? I'm 50 now and I've got toys all over my room. Am I too old for it? Again, that's how people thought back then. I don't think I think normal people think that nowadays. If you had a normal sister and a normal mother nowadays, if you took my mom and my sister from then and transported them now, I don't think there'd be any difference. I think the mom would still get pissed off that the 12-year-old son wants to buy some stupid toy. And, you know, and the sister would probably think the same thing. Unless the sister was into anime and she, you know... There's those people too. I don't know. But back then it was an odd... It was... And the other thing is, you didn't only... like I said, this is I keep saying this in a lot of videos, and this pertains specifically to the going to toy stores like Toys R Us, or like Kay-Bee and JK and stuff, is you know, you also had to contend with sneaking the shit home, getting it into your room before your mom sees what you bought, you know, your sister sees what you bought, and at the same time you had to be clandestine about it to not let anybody from your school see you buying this stuff, because you'd be ostracized at school. It's like you had no safe haven. Like for me, my only safe haven for me was hanging out with my alcoholic dad, because he just didn't give a shit. But everywhere else, it was just stress. It was just stress. It's like I can't let my mom know what I bought because she's going to yell at me. My sister's going to be mad at me because I bought toys and I'm too old. And then I can't let anybody from school see it because I'm going to get made fun of when I go to and bullied when I go to school. Even, you know, all those kids also have those toys too, and they're also in the same situation. Like I said, it's a lot of stress. I don't think my son has. My son has other stress. You know, he's got to flex on Fortnite, and, you know, and do all that stuff, which is a different kind of stress. But my stress was this as a kid. You know, like I said, you had a pass with comic books. Comic books were still frowned upon between normies, but at the same time, comic books could sort of you could not ruin all of your social cred at school by having comic books, but you were walking a fine line with that. But you know, you bought an action figure, you bought G.I. Joes, you bought stuff, mask, cop figures like that. You're playing with fucking death. You better watch yourself, because, like I said, I mean, it's like going to prison. You better watch yourself. You're gonna get shanked. That's just how it was. I'm assuming it's not like that now because nobody's into this stuff anymore. You know, I don't know. But you know, in these toy stores, I mean, the nice thing about these toy stores is they never judged. You know, I mean, I'm sure the employees are like, oh shit, we got a bunch of these kids in here again. These kids are just gonna walk around forever, you know, and they didn't care. I'm sure, you know, they're probably like, oh, you buy something. I never screwed around in the store. I never, like, you know, created hell for the... I might have asked a lot of questions and bugged them because I was lonely and didn't have anybody to talk to, and they seemed to be non-judgmental, so I would do that. Yeah, outside of that, you know, I liked going to these stores. They were like I said, it was like a place that it was your safe space, as it were, using the proper nomenclature of today. It was a safe space. You'd go there, as long as you didn't run into a kid from school that would ostracize you, your parents weren't there to yell and bitch and scream at you. This was a safe place, and it was surrounded by all the shit that just got you high as a kite. You know, I mean, this stuff was like dope. Like, this stuff was like more powerful than any drug. This stuff was like, you know, you were in a different world. You were in outer space when you went to places like this as a kid. And like I said, it was a nice place to go to, whether it's Kay-Bee Toy Store, whether it's JK Toys, Circus World, you know, Toys R Us, Children's Palace, or Child's World, whatever you want to call it. You know, Kmart, anything with toy department. Like I said, Kmart and stuff like that was an iffy situation, because there was, you know, a lot of normies would go to Kmart, and a lot of normie kids would go to Kmart with their parents, and, you know, you kind of had to watch it there because you could get caught. Most of the time, you know, they weren't gonna, and if they saw you walking out of JK Toy Store with a toy in your hand, like I said, most of them aren't gonna say anything and make their presence known, because they're waiting for you to get out of their radar, or get out of, you know, eye shot, because they're going to sneak in there and they're going to buy the Mamba, and they're going to be in the same situation you are, and they don't want you to know that they know that you know that they know that you know that, so everybody knows that you bought that. And that's just how it was. Like I said, you know, like I said, I was there for all of that stuff. I don't know if anybody younger than me, if any millennial or any Gen Z, whatever you people are called, people younger than me, if you've had to deal with any of that, because it seems like a lot of the stuff seemed to be cool and socially acceptable the more generations go. Like I said, people are 25 today, to me, look like it's like already at 12. You know what I mean? People at 25 back in the 80s, they were like Vietnam vets. You know what I mean? So, anyways, I talked my hour on this. Sorry I kind of went off in tangents, but that's what I do. That's the whole shtick of my show, is to tell you about stuff. So, remember, like and subscribe, do all that jazz business. If you like these store ones, I could do more of them. I mean, I'll try to focus a little bit more. I know I've kind of lumped all the toy stores together into kind of this one thing, but this is supposed to be Kay-Bee Toy Store specific, Circus World. A little bit of JK peppered in there. But, I probably could do a Toys R Us one. I could do a Children's Palace story, about all this stuff. But the biggest thing for me is I want more pictures. I want more, photographic evidence of this stuff. I could tell you stories till I'm blue in the face, but it's hard without visuals to show you exactly what I'm talking about. And it's just these photographs just seem to be so hard to find. It's crying shame, because, like I said, I had the internet at 25 for the first time. I spent 25 of my 50 years on this planet without the internet, right? This is all there was. So half of my life is encompassed by this time period. And it's a shame that I just don't have enough. With all the cameras now, it's like, Jesus, like people take gazillion HD photographs of everything nowadays. I'd love to be 40 years from now and look back at 2024 and go, wow, look at it, because you could see everything. But back then, all of this world that I'm talking about, it's just, there's not enough photographic, history there for people to look at. It's a shame. Because, like I said, I can remember a lot of these things vividly in my head, and I'm very passionate about it, obviously, as you can tell, to the point where it's bordering on lunacy. But anyways, I'll catch you on the next video. Like I said, I'll try to put some thought into, trying to somehow do a better job of this video, and kind of, I guess I just need to. I've been really busy working, so it's hard for me to spend a lot of time looking stuff up. I kind of just have to go with what I can find real quick. But again, you guys know places to go. That's the thing I'm asking you, is if you know places to go with a lot of photographs, or you have photographs, or whatever, let me know, because I really would like to build up a good cache of photographs of that stuff, the stuff that I'm talking about. I mean, it doesn't have to be toy related too. I mean, it can be just Kmart, stuff that just doesn't exist anymore. But alright, I will let you go, and I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.